Hello guys, it's Trevor. Today we're going to take a break from the book series videos to talk about a recent movie I'm sure everybody knows. The highest grossing film in the world for over a decade, Avatar. Now this movie came out when I was a kid and everybody loved it. It seemed like everyone except me, really. But now I realize I'm not the only person who has a problem with this movie. But I'm going to try to talk less about Avatar, the first one, and try to talk more about Avatar Way of Water, which, despite coming out less than 3 weeks ago at the time of writing, is actually the 14th highest grossing film ever made. Now, having seen it for myself, I'm under no illusions why. I've seen it twice now, and I have no doubt that's one of the best made films ever put to screen. But Trevor, why? Why did you say you didn't like them? And what's with the title if you think this is the best made film? Well, the way I worded it is telling. It's the best made film. In fact, I think it's a more accurate notion would be to say that Avatar is the best visual and animated masterpiece to hit the screens. This movie is visually stunning, unbeatable in the animation technology it implements, in combination with live action and visual effect. With that being said, best ever written? Definitely not. But those things are forgivable. Another James Cameron movie, Terminator 2, is probably one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. And all it is a cat and mouse chase with the robots where the main character is the MacGuffin. Despite that, even the Terminator has more character than most of the characters in Avatar. Even more than that, besides time travel paradoxes, the movie makes more sense than Avatar. Although the motivations of Skynet are basic, eliminate one kid to harm the resistance, it's better than having a complex antagonist whose ends and means are dumb as bricks. The humans in Avatar are so dumb. If anyone hasn't seen Avatar Way of Water yet, I suggest you go watch it. Or if you haven't seen the original Avatar, what are you doing? Go watch it in 3D especially, you will not regret. Now, I'm going to start talking about the plot so you've been warned. Okay. Humans dumb. In this new movie especially, the humans are going through an almost extinction level event of hardship and damage to the earth. The species is on the ropes and they need the resources of Pandora to survive. The unobtainium to help them with their energy needs. And Jake turns his back on humanity because he falls in love with an alien? Even as a kid I felt betrayed. I feel like he just left us all to die. Of course, the film doesn't show how the human population will suffer if the mining doesn't happen, or those who use violence to protect the mining. But when we watch that and cheer the destruction of humans because they seemed aggressive and cruel, remember what the humans are fighting for. Everyone on Earth, which in most movies, those who fight for all of humanity would be good guys. Okay, but just because humans need something doesn't mean that we should be monsters, right? Well, humans are a part of nature and Darwinism tends to select those who do everything they can to survive. This isn't human on human violence, this is an alien species. But we feel bad for the aliens because they somehow convergently evolved the same body type and emotions as humans. If they look like xenomorphs from Alien, I don't think we would have the same reactions to driving them out for the good of humanity. We anthropomorphize the Navi because they are anthropomorphic in design. But okay, devil's advocate aside, let's say we treat them as we should treat humans, as we should treat any intelligent species. They tend to be treated the way that the United States treated the Native American population in the 1800s. This is obviously the allegory that James Cameron is going for. The humans are the United States or Europeans, and the Navi are the indigenous Americans, or in the case of the new movie, Native Polynesians. This is problematic for a number of reasons I'll get back to. Now this is a sci-fi movie and I would be remiss not to mention the science fiction and space aspect. It was portrayed wonderfully. They correctly, like the spaceships, don't even get me started. They correctly have engines toward the planet on approach because they're decelerating. And that's why Jake can see their engines burn on the way in. Because, the engines aren't burning from behind. They're coming towards the planet. They're slowing down. Instead of what some sci-fi does where they just keep the engines pointed from the back of the ship because that's what seems normal. The design of the ships is also spot on. Most of the weight seems to be in the fuel and engines, as well as shielding, which is how most of our modern spaceships are. Small amounts of payload proportionally, so a huge ship is needed to take even a sizable payload. The shape of this ship is also spot on, long and skinny with shielding on the front. When plowing through space at relativistic speeds, you want a small cross section. One might simplify it and think of it like cars traveling down a snow-blocked road. Snow being the space dust being hit at near light speed. You can't drive your car into multiple feet of snow, you need shielding. If 4 cars are aligned one beside the other, you need 4 snowplows in front of each one to clear the way for them. If there are 4 cars, one behind the other, you only need 1 snowplow in the front to clear the way for all 4. That is why you'd want a long, skinny spaceship. So the spaceship's really well done. Now, that being said, let's talk about the people in the spaceships, the humans. The human attitude upon their return in the new movie is dumb. Talking about the spaceships, they come down and their huge engines burn everything within a few mile radius of where they land. This is stupid for a few reasons. The Europeans, when they land in the Americas, they don't just start burning everything, they'd be destroying their future home and all the resources on it. The unobtainium that they wanted and anything in the local ecosystem that would have been valuable, they destroy. In doing so, they turn their landing spot into a wasteland that's almost no better than just landing on an uninhabited, airless moon. And since they were beaten in the last war, why would they be needlessly antagonizing the natives instead of landing over water or something way simpler that destroys a lot less? This is a decision that they made that brings up questions about later methods. So why are the humans here? Well, the Earth is dying, so they need to set up a colony on Pandora. Fair enough, right? But the technology suggests that they have other solutions. They are able to set up a city with robotic builders. They also have starfaring technology. If humans wanted to move people off the Earth, couldn't they just build stations or O'Neill cylinders in space? Couldn't that be more beneficial than trying to have them survive on a planet with hostile inhabitants and having questionable morals in the process? I get that if that were the case, there'd be no Pandora and there'd be no movie, so that can be ignored. I bring this up because they introduce technologies and powers that humans have without thinking of the consequences they have outside of Pandora, and how would it affect the needs of humans and the reasons they are there. There can be a reason for humans to be on Pandora and be belligerent that actually makes sense. It's just a movie, but good movies have antagonists with sound motivations. The movie starts off with Jake and his tribe ambushing the human shipments on Maglevs. In response, the strike team of Marines cloned in new avatar bodies led by Colonel Miles was sent on a recovery mission for the leader of the clan, Jake. Now this makes sense. They tried the confrontational approach and were beaten, so sending covert ops team is a change of pace for the humans and makes sense. But after Jake flees with his family, what reason is there really for the pursuit? The confrontational clan leader is gone. If the clan stops attacking the Maglevs, that's what matters, right? That's the mission. You can still hunt down Jake and he might be perceived as a danger if he is free, but the main objective has seemingly been fulfilled. This leads Miles to tracking Jake's family to the islands of the water Navi, a group of separate tribes not engaged in war with the humans. Now this is important. The plot somewhat hinges on the water tribes not being involved in the war at the beginning of the movie. When Miles and the commandos asked to hunt him down, the general is apprehensive, stating that it's a large area to search. But critically, she doesn't seem too harsh on measures being used on the neutral parties. Miles begins to abuse natives mercilessly, showing that Miles really has a one-dimensional approach to diplomacy. Diplomacy is a part of warfare. If they're having issues with one tribe attacking their supply lines, which is the main motivation to hunt down Jake, how is making more enemies helping that goal? If the human position is tenuous, why create a grand coalition against herself? The Europeans, even having better technology, didn't attack the Native Americans all at once. Their power and supplies were far away and their manpower was limited. The Europeans would play Native Americans off of each other. They would ally one tribe over another, have them fight off. So why don't the humans employ this approach in the movie? Especially if they're modeled loosely on the colonial Americans, which is the allegory that James Cameron's going for. And if the general doesn't care about making more enemies in the natives, and she doesn't care about damaging the environment as demonstrated by the landing, if Jake is somewhere in a mountain range or the island chain and it's too huge an area to search, why not just bring a giant ship engine and erase the whole island chain or cook everything on it? Because that would be a short movie. Yes, but that just makes the humans look even dumber. That why wouldn't they take that approach if James Cameron had already established that the humans would do that? So the main motivation for having the humans land like that or just use harsh tactics is just to make the humans look evil. But that decision wasn't thought out. Ah yes, the trope of the noble savage. A trope and stereotypes many of you actually might be familiar with. It came about in the late 18th century and persists to this day in some degrees. Unlike policies of assimilation, extermination, and deportation, the conceptualization of natives has a much more pleasant exterior. James Cook, the explorer, demonstrates this mentality when he describes the Aborigines of Australia, stating, "They live in tranquility which is not disturbed by the inequity of the condition. The earth and sea of their own accord furnishes them with all the things necessary for life. They covet not magnificent houses, household stuff. They live in warm and fine climate, and they enjoy a very wholesome air, so that they have very little need of clothing. And in the beginning, man was made right with regular, pure affections." This is very much how the film portrays the Navi. There's just a few issues, however. The interpretation of natives in this light is full of misconceptions and perhaps unintentional racism. To start, the assumption that native peoples represent man in a pure state implies that the native societies are primitive and are not advanced, just because they lack some of the technology the Europeans had. This is incorrect. Many native populations had advanced societies and technologies, such as the Aztec or the Inca Empire, or the mound builders of North America. And just because a population does not have technology does not mean that culturally they are equivalent to man at the dawn of time. They have still gone through the same amount of years in cultural development as any other contemporary civilization or culture. They also did not live in accordance with nature. Natives in the Americas hunted all the megafauna to extinction in the first few thousand years after they crossed the land bridge to the America. They had agriculture as well. Not every native tribe was a plains hunter-gatherer. The Navi might not have discovered agriculture yet, but they would be hunting their megafauna. What's unrealistic is that there's any left before the humans get there. Natives in the America were also not eternally peaceful until the Europeans showed up. They had constant intertribal conflict just like tribal peoples in Europe. Tribes that the Europeans would interact with would have themselves forced other tribes off that land they currently inhabit, and the tribe before them would have done the same. There is thousands of years of history in the Americas, and to presume that there's no conflict migration is historically incorrect and assumes that the native peoples are somehow different from the rest of the world, less complex. I only bring this up because the movie closely models the Navi after native peoples, and the humans after the Europeans and Americans. And it comes off as a stereotype of the conflict between the two peoples, which can be distasteful and in some cases offensive. It would also be more entertaining and more morally complex if these factions were more realistic. What would our cast do if one tribe attacked another, or tried to ally with the Sky People? What moral questions would that bring up? Would the movie be better if the sides were not so black and white? So I know I've thrown a ton of criticism at this, and again, it is overly critical. I'm not saying I don't like the movie. The movie was great, in my opinion. I just think that these things could have been changed, like we could have had some more depth. I'm definitely going to watch the next movie when it comes out, and there is no denying that these movies are beautiful beyond doubt. So again, go watch them and tune back in or subscribe to see our next book review, movie summary, or discussion. See ya.